Hi, I'm Susan Kennard, and welcome to the Spiritual Awakener podcast. This is a podcast where I get to interview really cool people from across the globe about their spiritual awakening experiences and how they help the collective, how they help humanity at this time. It's an exciting journey. I've been on my journey for over 30 years now, and my spiritual awakening is over at episode 1, where you can hear what woke me up in the night, as well as what woke up my soul. So I'm really excited to have my next guest here. Her name is Kerri Hummingbird. She is definitely a cool customer. I'm looking forward to interviewing her about her story and all of the amazing work she does with humanity. So thank you, Kerri, for being here on the Spiritual Awakener podcast. Thank you.
Thank you, Susan. I'm so excited to be here and to feel everybody out there listening.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's great to know that there are many people at this time, Carrie, that are really awakening and they really are remembering who they are. And it's lovely that we can have that job to help people really guide them on their journey. So, Carrie, what I like to ask people on my podcast initially is, was there a turning point? Was there something that really awakened you to who you are? Can you share that with my audience?
Yes, absolutely. So, like many people, I did the standard go along and create a life based on how the prescription model and literally prescriptions because I was taking SSRIs and going to weekly psychotherapy and being a good person as much as I could be and still really not being myself, being very inauthentic. And I had gotten awoken into the depth of life when I became a mother. I actually had postpartum depression and like a pretty significant case of it. That
Mm.
started waking me up to wow, there's more to life than I understand, and there's more to me than I understand. There's a big darkness inside that I need to explore or heal or something.
Yeah.
And how do I do that? And I
Mm.
cobbled it together, like most people do, because I was like, oh, I don't have time for all that. That's just too much. So it
A
took
mother,
me a
right?
while.
Your mother
Yeah,
looking after, as I am a mother, looking after kids. Yeah. Hmm.
exactly. I mean, I had just become a mom, so it took me a while. It literally took me until my kids were entering junior high and in elementary school, so third grade and sixth grade, before it got bad enough in my life, meaning I was so inauthentic. I know that I was not being who I needed to be, and it was making me so depressed that I was suicidal. And
Wow.
so what I did was I just had this, Kali Ma moment of burning down my entire life, set fire to the whole thing, and walked out and sort of in a blaze of glory. Like, I'm done with this marriage. I'm done with psychotherapy. I'm done with the labels. I'm done with you telling me that I'm, these broken and all of this. And if I'm going to live that way, that way is leading to my death. And so I'm not going to go there. And I said, you know what? There's another possibility. And I walked out, and about 6 months later, I met my first spiritual teachers, and I began a path of spiritual healing and awakening called the Quest for Authenticity with a local teacher who was
Mm.
shamanic and introduced me to the drum. And he did a healing on me. And that healing was transformational because it woke me up to say, oh, I'm not one solid thing,
Mm.
and I'm not my mind, and there's more to me. And as I'm lying there on the floor thinking, I have been demoted, I am now on the floor instead of the couch, and he's banging the drum and going on a shamanic journey inside my essence to see where was the original wound. I suddenly decided in my mind, what if I just imagine that this could heal me just for 1 second? I'll just like give it a chance.
Yeah.
And in that second that I decided that, this beautiful presence came and hovered over me. That was so much love. I've never felt that much love before. And he started doing the healing. And by the end of it, it was like I remembered, wait a second, I am this. Like whatever this is that he did with me, that's me. I do that. And so I started the journey of becoming that person that does that for others. And
Well,
it's just expanded since then.
I love what you said about this energy that kind of where once you surrendered, you actually said, look, I wonder how it would be as if I could, instantly heal in that moment, and it's that possibility, isn't it, that, who we are knows that. And so in that moment, you had that space with the drumming, the sound. I know shamanic work, it's beautiful. And it kind of takes you away from the kind of 3D reality, doesn't it? And that opened that door for you to say, well, actually, yeah, do you know what? I'm ready and I surrender this. And then that beautiful, felt angelic to me actually, but an angelic presence just said, yeah,
Yeah.
and that unconditional love is and love that actually is not a tangible love like we experience with relationship and friendships and so on. It's a very different love, isn't it? Can you speak to that?
Yeah, it was a very high vibrational feeling. I mean, for me, love was always an entanglement. It was always like a condition, always an expectation, and never enough. And when I had this experience, it was so clean and so available and so abundant and just high vibration, like the most love. I still think that's the most love there is. It was like wow. It was such a contrast from how I had been living that it made a big impact on me. Like there's this much love, and I felt this. It was literally like an angel hovering above me, and
Hmm.
I told my practitioner or my teacher, I said, there's something hovering above me that loves me. And he laughed and he said, you're so sensitive. I love that about you. And for the first time, also, I realized, oh, I'm sensitive and perceptive. I'm not broken. I'm actually gifted. And that was a transition that came to me time and time again until I
Yeah,
really got it.
yeah, yeah. That is beautiful though. And it's, I mean, I could see they were showing me clairvoyantly what you experienced, and I could literally see that angel above you in that moment. And I was like, wow, yeah, that is such a beautiful awakening that you had.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's kind of like when, the process of after that is the interesting part, right? For me, it creates this magic door where life becomes so much more textual and interesting. And I've had so many amazing moments of synchronicity and connection with nature and the divine
Mm.
visions and actually just flat out interaction with nature. For example, there's one time I was in the woods on a um, they don't it's like a vision quest, but it's less significant than that because we had food and we had water. We didn't have food, but we had water. And I'm out there for 3 days, and this is day one, so I'm not delusional yet. It's only day one. I mean, I didn't have a phone or anything, but I was still somewhat rational. And I had done everything I could do to create a space, and I was kind of bored. So I went and I stood up on this rock and I started singing an Icaro. And Icaro is a song from the jungle. It's a spirit song to call in spirit, to call in the guides and helpers, and to just use my voice to interact with Mother Nature. And so I was doing that and calling in all these things. And all of a sudden, I got this giggle inside. And I said, I'll call in Hummingbird. And so Siwar Kente is the name in Quechua. And so I started calling in Siwar Kente. And all of a sudden, through the woods comes this hummingbird and hovers right in front of my third eye.
Wow.
And I thought, and it stayed there. And I'm looking at it and I'm in awe. And I go, okay, you came when I called. And it nodded. And then it flew
Oh,
away.
yeah, yeah.
Just to let me know, like,
Just to
I
let you
mean,
know,
that
asking it is
if we
given, right,
call,
Kerri?
we always show up even if you don't see us tangibly in this way. Like this is a special thing just for you right now, so you get the message. When you call, we're there.
Yeah. And that goes back to the ask and it is given, right? So
Hmm.
you asked, you surrendered when you had that awakening, but you also then asked, you
Yes.
asked and it was given.
And it wasn't given again. I tried it later and it was like,
Yeah.
no, you already got the message. We're not going
Yeah,
to do it again.
how many times
This
do you need to
isn't
be told, right?
performance.
How many times do you need the evidence?
Right? A
Oh,
lot,
we're
apparently.
terrible. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, we're terrible like that. I remember when I was resisting being a medium many years ago. It was like, yeah, you're a natural medium. I'm like, no, 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 I don't want to be a natural medium. I was a psychologist. I was like, no, I don't want to be a natural medium. Yeah, you are. Yeah. And so that just kept happening and kept happening until I literally surrendered that. So, and it was like, yeah. constantly showing me that. I'm like, but really, um, yeah. So
But
carry on.
yeah, that journey that you had being a psychotherapist, I could relate to that from the other side of the couch. And
Yeah,
for a while when I woke up, I thought, why in the world would people label people and sort of shame them and all of it? Like, I was really objecting to this whole process for a while, and I was upset, and I had this movement called Skills Not Pills movement, and I'm like, I'm going to tell everybody that that stuff's bogus, and I was doing that for a while, and then I realized, like, literally a couple weeks ago, somebody in a conversation said, well, when you're going to come in to be a shamanic healer, like someone that sets the dream for the planet, you have to know your own mind. And so you go through this period of initiation where you learn about your mind, and all of a sudden it clicked, and I was like, "Oh, that was how I learned about
why
my
you had to.
mind."
Yeah.
By every week on the therapy couch, I was exploring all of my thought tunnels.
And when I trained as a psychotherapist, and a psychologist, that was me exploring my own, right? And I had no idea that that was my initiation.
Yeah, I think we
Definitely.
don't know
Yeah.
until retrospect. I mean, hindsight is
Hmm.
2020. He he he. We can see like
2020 vision.
I can't help but make jokes. But
I
yeah, I
know.
mean, we can see it and clearly, but only after the fact. And so that's where the trust comes in. It's like, when you get enough proof that the universe is benevolent and it's here for you, then you can start to trust the journey you're on, that it's all going to make sense, and that on the other side of like leaning into the uncomfortable things you're being asked to do that might make you weird or different or on the outside and expose
Mm.
you as not part of the mainstream thinking, because really, like, sovereignty is moving beyond the group think and into what your soul specifically is calling forth from you. And I believe we're in a collective movement of that right now, because we've created safety by conformity and forced conformity, and that's not true safety. True safety is alignment with your soul's divine guidance and moving forward from that place, and from that true sovereign connection to your soul becomes the true unity, because that is synchrony, and that's a divine orchestration. It's not a man-made construction. So
We don't need protection.
we're moving into that.
We don't need that, do we? We don't need to be protected because we are completely protected. Just saw someone before the podcast, and the key thing is that we don't need someone to protect us. We don't need another to protect us in this life, that we are completely protected in every way. And it is that trust that you say, Kerri, and it is that, well, surrender again, but it is that trust, knowing that actually we are sovereign beings of light, as you said, and we are always, always taken care of.
Yeah, and this idea of needing to have like a trigger warning. I was actually speaking with a new friend, Rachel Lowenherz, yesterday, and she said, life doesn't come with a trigger warning. Like, we're all expecting these trigger warnings, and it's like, no, like, you actually need to step into the gift here. You
Mm,
don't have to, you can do whatever you want. But the invitation is to step in and say, life is for me, and it's teaching me through my body when I'm triggered that something needs my attention, and is
mm,
another doorway for me to liberate myself from suffering, so that I can embrace the totality and the greatness of myself by moving through that discomfort and onto the other side. And it's like we want the pearl, but we don't want to have to go through the grit to get the pearl. And no, you got to go through the grit if you want the pearl. You don't just get the pearl. You become the pearl by going through the grit. So life is messy, buckle up, sisters, like, put your big girl panties on, and let's, like, go off into the wilderness and,
we
like,
call them Bridget Jones knickers here.
get
Jones, have
gritty.
you seen that film?
No,
Bridget Jones.
oh yeah, I did
Oh,
actually
okay,
see
yeah,
that.
yeah. So
Funny.
you would call them Bridget Jones knickers. But yeah, no. What I want to talk to you about, what I'm feeling like really getting a push here with my guides is what do you feel is the pearl? Like after, so we're going through this, like we're recording this on the 16th of September 2021, and unless you've been in a coma, you know that the world has been going through an incredible shift and awakening. But it's been gritty, and it continues to be gritty, with different things happening. We'll keep this uncensored, but essentially, if you listen to this, you know what's been going on. So, what do you feel, Kerri, is the pearl after the grit?
Well, the pearl is that humanity is going through this grit process so that we can clear away thousands of years of human suffering and misunderstanding and all the lessons that we had to go through actually to become a galactic citizen. So, we had to go through this process so that we understand how to behave when we become a member of the star nations and we're recognized as a species by other star nations. So we're in that process. So on the planet at this time, we have many Star Nations emissaries embodied as human, experimenting and exploring this experience and saying and ratifying it, saying, yes, this is a good experience. Yes, this is worthy. Yes, we're going to keep this. Yes, this species can stay. Yes, we've figured out how to blend this with higher consciousness. And so some of our best and brightest stars across the galaxy have actually embodied as human to try it out and to verify, and these people are these second wave people, as we were talking before the show, are
Yeah, yeah.
they're very thorough human programmers. They're very thorough programmers of consciousness, I should say, and their latest project is humanity. So they've been doing a lot of work embodied while feeling and looking like a very messy human, actually doing amazing programming work on human consciousness and up leveling the entire dynamic so that generations to come are now operating at the level of frequency that we can freely operate with the rest of the galaxy instead of being sequestered as we have been. It's like trying to get to Mars. Why? Because you want to meet other galactic people who are like, no, we're not letting you out there loose yet. Like that's not happening. You want to blow your planet up, you're not getting out there. So,
So what
this
do
is
you
kind
think
of.
about the whole because obviously there's the other side of it, isn't there, where people are working with perhaps trying to change oh I've got to do this without being censored. Hold on. Trying to change um the electrical current within us to a different that's probably the best way to say it, right? To a different vibration. So
Yes.
so let's have fun with this. So like basically let's talk about that. So we know that we're soul having a human experience this time, right? But we are star seeded, and it's great talking to people like you because I live this life, right? And my community does as well. So it's great that they're listening to it as well. But so we know that we're star seeded. We know that we've come at this time because a really important mission and job to do, right? So the ones that are not awake, that are not aware, what do you feel is their job?
You know, we're getting a review. So if you've ever done an entity clearing for someone, you've had the experience of that entity does not leave until it's recognized and it gets to share its story. Basically, it wants to be like paraded around and, fluff its feathers and be like, "Look at me. I did all this." So that's basically what's happening. We're getting the that kind of frequency is parading itself around and saying, "Look what I have done on the planet up until now, and it's amazing." And truly it is because that is some grit that humanity had to go through because no, I just don't know any souls that learn lessons by watching others. There's very few that are smart enough to go, I'm going to learn from your lessons and not do that myself. Most souls got to do it themselves. Like
Yeah.
we got to go, we have to skin our knees to know why not to fall off the bike. We have to, like we have to do things and why to know not to do it. And that's why we all, there's 64 gene keys on this planet and we all get to try them all on, so that we know why don't lie. Why don't lie? Well, because that leads to some karma. And why is that karma? Because it has this experience. So it's not, we need to get out of binary thinking.
Mm.
And we are elevating the planet. People ask me, well, why are you so confident about the new age? Why are you so confident about the age of Aquarius that, a lot of these problems will just go away? And I said, well, because as we ascend our human consciousness, we step into more psychic gifts. And as we step into more psychic gifts, well, guess what? You're psychic. So that means when someone's lying, the gig's up. Like you're like, oh, you're not telling the total truth
So
there. And
easy.
I know you're not, So
Yeah.
So there's no more mystery about that part. The mystery now changes to something more vast and beautiful than what we've been focusing on. Like up until now, I don't know about anybody listening, but my mystery has always been, why do human beings do the things that they do? It doesn't make any sense. Because I'm a star seed, I've been on this planet maybe I don't know how many lifetimes, probably a bunch, but who knows? But it still doesn't make sense to me why people do the things they do. So that is the big mystery, right? But we're changing that mystery because with more psychic gifts, we actually have more empathy. We understand why people are doing the things they're doing, and we have more access to our own shadow side, which is telling us like all the things that we repress about ourselves because we don't want to know that we're the same. It's like, oh, I don't lie. Sure, you do. Like in this other way, right? So it's like owning that totality. So that's no longer like something that's happening out there. It's
Yeah,
like happening there and it's here too.
yeah.
So we're just moving into more holistic understanding of ourselves and the psychic gifts and a whole new way of relating where actually that's important. Relationship is the new platform for the age of Aquarius. It's our new focus. Up until now, it's been material safety, learning how to operate these bodies, figuring out what we can do with Earth, on Mother Earth materials, and we kind of did a bunch of stuff without asking. Now it's the age of relationships, including the relationships with our own bodies, the relationships with each other, the relationship with Earth herself, and to ask permission and to, kind of bring people instead of just forcing and doing. It's like,
Mm.
okay, can I just ask now the mountain spirits, is this okay if I, what do you think about me doing this idea? Give me some advice. So it's like that interaction with all of nature and with our bodies themselves too.
I love that. I love it. I could listen to you for hours and hours and hours. Yeah, it really feels that when you're speaking, you're channeling that information. And so, who do you use as your channel? Is it White Eagle,
Yes.
or yeah? So we spoke about before we came on and before we started recording your first book that you wrote. Do you want to just hold it up and then say the title of it, Kerri?
Yes, so this is the book that came out in 2019. And it's actually my second book, but this one came out in
Oh, sorry.
2019. And it's the
Yeah.
first one with White Eagle. So White Eagle is my channel on this book. And as I started opening to channeling the messages in this book, is when I
Called
really
the
started
second
integrating
wave, just because if people are not
the
watching,
second
so
wave. Yeah, it's
second
called the
wave.
second wave, transcending the human drama, and it's listed under my name, Kerri Hummingbird Sami. It also lists White Eagle on the cover. Because it's White Eagle's book. He said, "You better put my name on the cover because nobody knows who you are." I was like, "Okay." But
That's nice. That's nice.
thank you.
And most people know who he is. Yeah. Um, yeah. And what I really loved about it, because you said something about it. It's like literally when I saw the title of it, the second wave. I mean, come on. You were given that expression for that book. And what do people talk about now? Well, we're not on the second, but we're on the third and the fourth. But it's interesting how you called it the second wave. So what is it about the second wave in that book? What is it? What's the main crutch of it?
Yeah, the second wave are actually really important. They have a very fundamental role, and many of the second wave members that I deal with are women who have come in to be mothers to, and actually it's so funny because Dolores Cannon says that the second wave is not mothers, but it's like no, actually like a lot of the second wave is mothers. So I'm not really sure where that discrepancy comes from, but my personal experience of it is like so many of us came in very traumatic beginnings, lots and lots of human drama and suffering. And then it was so much that we were compelled to find solutions to bring restore peace, harmony, healing in ourselves and our family systems. So the second wave members are people who had amnesia, generally speaking. There are second wave members who are awake since birth, but there's a lot more that were asleep, because why else would you choose to go through all that suffering? So you have to go through it to embody it, to understand it, and then to puzzle your way out of it, right? Which is part of the gig of like bringing humanity to the next level. Is
Mm,
we can only understand it as star seeds if we embody it, experience it, understand it, and know that it's possible to get this state of consciousness to the higher state of consciousness, then
Mm.
it's an okay experiment to run. If we can't get there, or a reasonable number of starseeds can't get there, then it's a failed experiment. But
Yeah.
we actually have proven it now that enough of us can get to higher consciousness with this species that it's a good training ground, for other starseeds. So this was just part of a big experiment to see if we could, and I staked my wings on it. So I'm just saying, like I staked my wings on it. I said, these humanities, they can do this. This is a good experiment. So, it's painful too. Like but all these feelings, we come here for this. We come here to feel grief. We come here to feel
Yes,
joy.
yeah.
We come here to feel, and to relate.
Sun's reflecting on me now. We were talking about that at the start, and I said, "Oh no,
Yeah.
we'll be all right." But now the sun's reflecting on me. Bear with me a sec. Just 1 second. um, yeah, and I definitely think that with emotions, it's just we have to feel those, and what my guys talk about is the embodying of everything. Like we're embodying our physicality, but we're embodying, well, our soul's already embodied, but we're embodying everything, and the emotions are part of that. And then as we've really experienced them and surrendered them and let them go, then we can move on to the next part of, I call, mission. So it's like we've come in with the mission, and then it just becomes clearer and clearer what our role is in humanity.
Yeah, and the biggest part of that, I just want to say, I'm getting the download. There's a section in the Second Wave book about from Jennifer Huff. She talks about the physics of this, and so
Mm.
basically every single time we do our self healing, we are upgrading our own consciousness bubble, and because we're constantly emitting photons of light, anytime that we're around others with our bubble of light, we are sharing those codes of healing with others, even if we never spoke to them or they didn't even know us, just by being in a certain place. And so sometimes I'm called to be in certain places, and I'm like, why am I always called to be at this particular restaurant? And then I'll talk to the wait staff, and they'll be like, this place is such a mess without you. It's like, okay, so like they
Oh.
even know, like, come sit here, just come sit here a couple times a week, just sit, eat dinner, you're helping. Like, so we don't have to necessarily do all the messaging, although the messaging is important too. But it's the beingness, and it's sharing the light codes and doing our own work.
And I call it like wherever I put my sparkly feet.
Yeah,
So
sparkly
I
feet.
yeah, I just feel like, as I said before we started recording, I'm Sag rising, so I like to just go. Where am I going? Where am I gonna put my sparkly feet next? And Greece was obviously just a week ago or so, and of course I met people that needed to experience something, yeah, around consciousness, even though I didn't plan to. That's what happened. And so, yeah, I think we get guided to be in the places that we need to be in at the time that we need to be in them. Definitely, just for our vibrational energy. And that's everyone, isn't it? Not just us, but everyone. We're all going to get guided to be at different places at different times.
Yeah, and it's leaning into the discomfort of that as well, because that's our growth edge. When we can stand in our truth and the compassion in our hearts, and I see a lot of light workers siloing, and so would like to encourage light workers to avoid siloing.
What does
And
that mean? What does siloing
it's
mean?
kind of like, well, I only want to stay in my frequency band, and so I'm going to limit my circle to only be people that are the same frequency band, and I'm not going to step outside of that because it starts to get uncomfortable for me to be
Yeah,
outside of my frequency band. And my invitation is, if you're here to be a light worker, you're here to actually be around like the entire spectrum, like
yeah.
not just a little sliver of frequency that feels good to you. It's like nice to know that you can go to the top of the mountain and get that back, and practice the muscle, because earth is about muscle too. It's about strength, it's about building mastery.
Yeah.
So and you're going to be building your mastery. Get outside your frequency band and hold your frequency around other frequency bands. You will actually help to elevate faster if you're just simply present with an open heart around other frequency bands. And you'll get to explore, why are you so uncomfortable with that lower vibrational frequency that's causing disturbance in your field? Because you got to heal something too. You're
I
not
love
done.
that. That's exactly, yeah, and
It's
I
not
love
them.
that.
It's not
Yeah.
their fault.
No, and that's perfect because it's always a reflection, isn't it? So if you feel something that in someone that you don't want to be around. Think about what it is that you don't want to be around that's within you. And that's I think one of the biggest things, isn't it, about being human is like taking that responsibility for your own vibrational set point.
That's
Yeah.
how we
And
grow.
yeah. And so relationship, like you said right at the start, is key because our relationship to ourself is our healing of our relationship to others, isn't it?
It is. And, we're stepping into, we have so many great tools for understanding ourselves now inside of, as a relationship within ourselves and as a relationship with others. I mean, there's so many great tools. There's some that I love to use. And because of those tools, we have that higher vision, that the eagle vision. I'll just say that, haha, like when we have like
Well, we need
eagle
to acknowledge
vision.
him. So he needs
Yeah,
to
white
come in. We need
eagle.
to acknowledge him. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like we have that for me it's white eagle vision, but I can look up and I can see, oh wow, okay, like this is why this dynamic is happening because I can see this person's chart and I can see my chart and I can see where the two overlap and I can see this is how I healed my mother wound with my mom and I know that we're running out of time, but there's like that book is also amazing in healing our relationships. So
Yeah.
you
Just
were
tell
talking
people
about,
about your book. Obviously that one. Just hold it up so people can see
oh
it and
yeah.
also say the title.
Yeah, so this is
And
called
this will
Love
all
is
be in the show notes, guys. So you're going to have all of this in the show notes, but just for the focus of now.
This is called Love is Fierce, Healing the Mother Wound. And this one I channeled with help from White Buffalo Calf Woman because White Buffalo Calf Woman is a Lakota teacher, actually. She's a Lakota Ascended Master. And she's all about sacred ceremony on the earth and restoring us to an understanding of sacred ceremony. Now, she didn't share any private Lakota teachings with me because I don't have any rights or access to that. I'm not Lakota. But what she did share with me is a new ceremony that people could do called, and it's not exactly new. There's an earth painting idea, and she's created a special one for people who get the book to help heal their mother wound. So this is a specific one generally designed for healing the mother wound.
Wow.
And
And it's found inside the book.
yeah, it's in the book. It's part of the download. And the reason
Wow.
why we need to heal that relationship is because, this is like I getting this so much more clearly now, but we are in this physical vessel is like Mother Earth. It's our piece
Hmm.
of Mother Earth.
Yeah.
And our souls are like the masculine, if we want to think masculine, feminine, although they
That's
don't.
how I see it as well. So
Yeah.
that's perfect. Go on.
So it's
Yeah.
just the divine kiss is where they meet, which is you in the middle, your totality as a human being, like a human being, not a human doing. And the human being is your integration with your soul inside your vessel, which is called embodiment, which is that word is being bandied about a lot now because that's what's happening. And
Yeah.
so, in order to do that, we have to make peace with our humanness and we have to make peace with Mother Earth and acknowledge we've been ignoring all of that aspect. I mean, we've been ignoring our bodies, generally speaking, most of us. We haven't been paying as much loving attention as we need. We haven't paid attention to the plants and the animals and the trees and, our surroundings, even the dirt. As much as we could have. So we are now opening to what indigenous people have known for a long time, which is, I believe, why White Buffalo Calf Woman and White Eagle is also an indigenous presenting ascended master. We are now moving into an indigenous understanding of the earth. And so I want to take a moment to honor, all indigenous people who have maybe undergone some traumas over the last several hundred years. On the planet, and to say thank you for holding the medicine strong while the rest of us caught up with what you already knew and we're learning.
Yeah.
And I want to say I really hope for big healing on the planet. My wish is for such huge healing on the planet that the indigenous, the people with indigenous inside can heal their hearts to become the teachers for the rest of us that are waking up to the love of Mother Earth and how we can be in communion the way that they have, because this is the evolution. And I'm grateful to have been a channel for White Buffalo Calf Women's teachings. I'm grateful to be, have an oversoul like White Eagle. I mean, please, I love White
Yeah.
Eagle. I mean, I'm so in love with White Eagle. Of course, I was like saying I'm in love with myself right at the higher level, but I just love White Eagle.
Extension
And
of you. Mm.
yeah, I feel like what beautiful teachings we have and we all share the earth because we're walking around in a piece of earth. So that's what we have in common. So let's make that true and strong. Bring
And
love back.
so a message to the listeners, a last message to the listeners, Kerri. What can we, going through the grit as we spoke before, what can you say to those listening going through the grit?
I love looking behind you because you've got this beautiful light coming out of this divine awakening being, and the rainbow is all around. And so remember the rainbow in the middle of the grit. There is both happening at the same time. I had this vision from my guides on an interview last week, and it was, how if we could see the planet and humanity the way the guides, the ascended masters, can see it from their viewpoint, you would see exploding rainbows like all over the planet. We're seeing the grit because we're human. They're seeing exploding rainbows. They're seeing such awakening happening. They're seeing rainbow there, rainbow there, rainbow there. It's like rainbow fireworks, like all over this planet. And so just know that that's what's happening, and trust that, and just let the rainbow explode in your own heart. Wake yourself up in that way, and it's okay. The grit is part of the process. It's not to be avoided. It is the way that the rainbow explodes, actually, is the grit.
And thank you for that. That's really beautiful. And last night on my members call, we did a process, and where mine were channeling through me, and they said, we see you as a light, a spotlight, literally on the stage, and we want you to see yourself as this pure light on a stage with a spotlight on you, because that's how we see you. And I thought that was really beautiful, because many of us have taken time before we've been happy to be in the spotlight, and what they were doing was saying that actually we see you all in the spotlight, so all equal. So you're all equal to us, and it's such a beautiful thing for them to see. So they don't see our faults, they don't see the things that we see, they just see pure light.
They see pure light, yeah, and we're human, so we also have to embrace our feelings and our ancestral histories as part of this too. So we're not going to bypass that. We're going to bring it all together.
Yeah, absolutely. But how they see us
Yeah,
is,
exactly.
this just incredible pure light that's perfect and whole. Yeah. Thank you so much, Kerri. Thank you. I mean, we could talk for another hour, of course.
Totally.
But it's always like that on podcasts when you have someone so incredible like you. So thank you, Kerri. Where can people get hold of you, just quickly?
KerriHummingbird.com, KERRI, hummingbird.com.
Brilliant. Okay. Well, thank you for coming on the Spiritual Awakener podcast. We've heard your awakening, we've heard your journey, and we've heard how you help other people to heal. And that's absolutely incredible. So thank you so much for joining us on the Spiritual Awakener today. I'm really excited to share this episode with you, and I really hope you've enjoyed this conversation. Thank you so much. And if you need to contact me, you can find me at susankennard.co.uk. Much love until the next episode of The Spiritual Awakener.